I was sitting alone in my garage last night, staring at an old bicycle covered in years of dust. That bike changed my life 12 years ago. I taught a scared little boy how to ride it, held him steady when he fell, and cheered when he finally pedaled on his own. 2 years later, that same little boy called me Dad for the very first time. I believed love was enough to build a real family. I was wrong. One sentence destroyed everything I had carefully built. Before I begin this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have not already, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything to me. Now let me take you back to where it all began, and you will understand why sometimes love alone is not enough to earn respect. My name is Lionel, and I was 28 years old when I first met Diana. It happened at a laundromat near my apartment complex on a Thursday evening. I had just finished a long shift as a licensed electrician and wanted nothing more than to wash my work clothes and go home. But fate had different plans. Diana was struggling with 3 overstuffed laundry bags, while her 5-year-old son, Marcus, clung to her leg, crying because he was hungry. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that seeps into your bones after months of fighting battles alone. I watched her drop one bag, then another, and before I knew it, I was walking over to help. She told me later that she almost refused my help. 8 months earlier, her husband Victor had walked out on her and Marcus for another woman. He left behind nothing but broken promises and unpaid bills. Diana had learned to distrust kindness from strangers, especially men. But something about me must have seemed safe enough, because she let me carry her bags to her car. Marcus stopped crying when I bought him a slice of pizza from the shop next door. He was a shy kid, always hiding his face behind his mother whenever I looked at him. His brown eyes would peek out for just a second before disappearing again. I thought he was adorable. I did not plan to fall in love. But over the next few months, I found myself showing up at that laundromat every Thursday, hoping to see Diana again. We started talking, then having coffee, then having dinner. She told me about Victor, about how he had charmed her when she was young, and naive about how he had slowly revealed his true, selfish nature after Marcus was born. Building a relationship with Marcus was harder than building one with Diana. The boy had been abandoned by his father, and he was not ready to trust another man. I understood that. So I took it slow. Every Saturday morning, I would bring over a box of Lego blocks and sit on the living room floor building whatever Marcus wanted to build. For weeks, he barely spoke to me. He would just point at pieces he needed, and I would hand them over silently. But slowly, very slowly, he started to open up. The breakthrough came when I offered to teach him how to ride a bicycle. Diana had never learned herself, so Marcus had never had anyone to teach him. For 3 weeks straight, I spent every Sunday afternoon running behind that little blue bike, holding the seat steady, while Marcus wobbled and fell, and got back up again. I still remember the day he finally did it. He pedaled all the way down the street without falling, and when he turned around, his face was lit up with the biggest smile I had ever seen. He ran straight into my arms, shouting that he did it. That night, I knew I was going to marry his mother. Diana and I got married when Marcus was 7 years old. At the wedding, Marcus wore a tiny suit and served as the ring bearer. He took his job very seriously, walking down the aisle with such concentration that all the guests laughed with joy. Victor did not attend. He did not even send a card. For the next year, Marcus still called me Lionel. I never pushed him to call me anything else. I figured that was something he had to decide on his own when he was ready. And then, one autumn afternoon, it happened. I was picking Marcus up from school, waiting by the fence like I always did. He ran out of the building with his backpack bouncing, surrounded by a group of his friends. When he saw me, he turned to the other kids and said those words I will never forget. "That is my dad," he said, pointing at me with pride in his voice. "He is picking me up today." I managed to hold myself together until we got home. But that night, after Marcus went to bed, I sat in the kitchen and cried. Diana found me there, and when I told her what happened, she cried too. We held each other for a long time, grateful for this little family we had built together. From that day forward, I threw myself into being the best father I could be. I worked extra shifts to pay for Marcus to join the youth basketball league he wanted to join. I gave up my dream of buying a new truck and instead opened a college savings account in his name. Every month, I put away whatever I could spare. I never missed a single basketball game. Even when it meant asking my boss for time off, even when it meant losing overtime pay, I was there in the bleachers cheering louder than any other parent. Coach Patterson once told me that Marcus played better when he knew I was watching. That made every sacrifice worth it. Diana would often look at me with grateful eyes and tell me that Marcus was so lucky to have me. I would just shake my head and say that I was the lucky one. And I meant it. Being Marcus's dad was not a burden. It was a gift. But there was always a shadow lurking at the edges of our happiness. Victor never completely disappeared. Every year on Marcus's birthday, a package would arrive from California. Expensive toys, brand-name clothes, things I could never afford. Victor never came to visit, never called to talk, but those packages kept coming like clockwork. When Marcus started middle school, he began asking questions about his biological father. Where did Victor live? What did he do for work? Why did he leave? Diana answered as honestly as she could without speaking badly of her ex-husband. I stayed quiet during these conversations, not wanting to interfere. I noticed Marcus keeping some of the gifts Victor sent in a special box under his bed. I noticed him Googling Victor's name on the family computer. I noticed the way his eyes would light up whenever a package arrived. But I told myself it was natural. Every kid wants to know where they come from. It did not mean he loved me any less. I was wrong about that too. Everything changed the summer Marcus turned 16. Victor, who had spent over a decade being nothing more than a name on birthday cards, suddenly decided he wanted to be a father. It started with a friend request on Facebook. Marcus accepted immediately. Within days, they were messaging constantly. Victor told Marcus all about his life in California, about the real estate brokerage company he now owned, about his beachfront house, and his luxury cars. He painted a picture of success and glamour that made our modest life in Ohio look pathetic by comparison. The first gift arrived 2 weeks later. It was the newest iPhone, the model that had just been released, the one that cost over $1,000. Marcus could not believe it. He showed it to all his friends, bragging about how his real dad had sent it to him. I tried not to let the word real sting, but it did. Victor started sending money too. $100 here, $200 there, always through apps that let Marcus spend it however he wanted. Suddenly, Marcus had designer sneakers and expensive headphones and all the video games his friends envied. He had never asked me for those things because he knew I could not afford them. But Victor could, and Victor did. Then came the promise that changed everything. Victor invited Marcus to spend 2 weeks with him in Hawaii during summer vacation. All expenses paid. 5-star resorts, surfing lessons, helicopter tours. It sounded like a dream. Diana was hesitant, but Marcus begged and pleaded until she gave in. I kept my concerns to myself. Part of me hoped that spending real time with Victor would show Marcus the difference between sending gifts and actually being there. Part of me was terrified that it would do the opposite. The 2 weeks Marcus spent in Hawaii were the longest of my life. He sent photos every day, pictures of pristine beaches and fancy restaurants, and Victor, with his arm around him, both of them smiling like they had never been apart. In every photo, Marcus looked happier than I had ever seen him. When he came home, he was a different person. His suitcase was full of clothes with labels I could not pronounce. He talked constantly about Victor's house, Victor's car, Victor's business. Everything was Victor this and Victor that. And he stopped calling me Dad. The first time he called me Lionel, I thought I had misheard. The second time, I knew I had not. I waited for him to correct himself, to apologize, to explain. He never did. After 12 years of being his father in every way that mattered, I was suddenly just Lionel again. I tried to talk to him about it, but he brushed me off. I tried to maintain our weekend traditions, our movie nights, and basketball games. But he always had something better to do. His phone was constantly buzzing with messages from Victor. His room was filled with Victor's gifts. His vocabulary was peppered with Victor's opinions. One evening, I asked Marcus to clean his room before dinner. It was a simple request, something I had asked hundreds of times before. But this time, he rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath. "You are not even my real father," he said, just loud enough for me to hear. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart cracking down the middle. I pretended I had not heard. I walked away and sat in the garage until my hands stopped shaking. That night, Diana asked me what was wrong. I told her it was nothing. I did not want to make her choose between her husband and her son. But Diana knew something was happening. She tried to talk to Marcus, tried to remind him of everything I had done for him over the years. He just shrugged and said he was grateful, but Victor was his real dad, and he wanted to have a relationship with him too. Diana told me it was just a phase. Teenagers always push boundaries, she said. He will come around. I wanted to believe her, but I could feel Marcus slipping away from me more and more each day. My mother, Grandma Ruth, came to visit that Christmas. She had always adored Marcus, had treated him like her biological grandson from the very beginning. But even she noticed the change in him. One afternoon, while Marcus was out with friends, she sat me down in the kitchen. "That boy is breaking your heart," she said, "and you are letting him." I did not know what to say. I told her I was trying to be patient, trying to give Marcus space to figure things out. She shook her head slowly. "There is a difference between patience and being a doormat," she said. "You need to have a real conversation with him before it is too late." But I could not bring myself to do it. Every time I tried, I remembered the little boy who had called me dad for the first time. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike, staying up with him when he had nightmares, cheering at his basketball games. I could not reconcile that boy with the teenager who now looked at me like I was a stranger. So I said nothing, and things kept getting worse. The explosion came in March of Marcus's senior year. He had just received his acceptance letter from State University, and the whole family should have been celebrating. Instead, we ended up in the worst fight of our lives. It started as a practical conversation about finances. Diana and I sat down with Marcus at the kitchen table to discuss how we would pay for his education. I had been saving for 12 years, putting aside every spare dollar I could find. The account had grown to $32,000. It was not enough for 4 years, but it was a start. Marcus looked at the number and laughed. Not a happy laugh, a mocking one. "That is not even enough for 2 years," he said. "What am I supposed to do after that?" I explained that he could apply for scholarships, take out some student loans, maybe work part-time during school. That was how most people did it. I had worked my way through trade school, and it had taught me the value of hard work and perseverance. But Marcus was not interested in hard work. He wanted me to take out a second mortgage on the house or drain my retirement savings. When I refused explaining that we needed to keep the house secure for the family, he exploded. "You never support me," he shouted. "You are always holding me back. Victor would never treat me like this." I stayed calm, even though my insides were churning. I told Marcus that Victor was welcome to contribute to his education if he wanted to. In fact, I said maybe he should call Victor and ask. Marcus sneered at me. "You are just jealous," he said. "You are jealous because Victor is successful, and you are just an electrician. You are jealous because I actually have a real father who cares about me." 12 years. 12 years of waking up for midnight fevers. 12 years of basketball games and homework help and birthday parties. 12 years of being his father in every way except blood. And in one sentence, Marcus reduced all of that to nothing. But I still held my tongue. I was about to suggest we take a break and continue the conversation later when Marcus delivered the final blow. He stood up so fast, his chair fell backward. His face was red with rage as he screamed the words that had been building for months. "You are not my real dad. You have never been my real dad. You are just some guy my mom married. And you have no right to tell me what to do." Then, he grabbed the glass of water in front of him and threw it on the floor. The glass shattered into 100 pieces water, spreading across the tile like my patience finally running out. Marcus stormed off to his room and slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. Diana was crying. She kept apologizing, saying she did not know where that came from, saying he did not mean it. I told her it was okay, that we would figure it out, that everything would be fine. But I was lying. Nothing was fine. And I was done pretending it was. That night, I could not sleep. I went out to the garage and sat among the tools and memories, staring at the old bicycle that had started everything. I looked at photographs from over the years. Marcus learning to ride. Marcus at his first basketball game. Marcus at Christmas, at birthdays, at ordinary Tuesday dinners. Marcus calling me dad. At 2 in the morning, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, like she had been expecting my call. I told her everything. The years of sacrifice. The gradual rejection. The things Marcus had said. Through it all, she listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed the way I saw the situation. "Son, you cannot force someone to love you. Sometimes you have to let them learn the hard way. You have given that boy everything for 12 years. Maybe it is time to let his real father give him something too." I stayed up the rest of the night thinking about what she said. By the time the sun rose, I had made my decision. I found Marcus in the kitchen the next morning, eating cereal like nothing had happened. Diana was at work, so it was just the two of us. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady, "you are right. I am not your real dad. I never was, and I never will be. So from now on, you should ask your real father for everything you need." He looked up, surprised. "Good," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. "Victor will actually help me." I nodded. "I hope he does. But I want to be clear about something. The $32,000 I saved. That is my money. I worked overtime for 12 years to put that together. It was meant for my son's education. But since I am not your real dad, I guess you are not really my son either." Marcus stared at me, his spoon frozen halfway to his mouth. He had not expected this. He had expected me to apologize, to beg for his forgiveness, to promise to try harder. That was what I had always done before. Not this time. "So call Victor." I continued. "Ask him to pay for your college. Ask him to help you the way I was going to help you. See if he shows up for you, the way I showed up for you." I stood up and walked out of the kitchen, leaving Marcus sitting there in stunned silence. Diana came home later and tried to convince me to change my mind. She said I was being too harsh, that Marcus was just a confused teenager, that he would regret what he said. I told her I hoped she was right. But I was not going to let Marcus treat me like a disposable backup father. He had made his choice. Now, he had to live with it. The next few weeks were tense. Marcus barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was with cold politeness. He spent most of his time in his room texting Victor about the college situation. Diana told me he was confident Victor would come through. He did not. Victor made promises. He said he was working on some big deals that would close soon. He said he just needed a few weeks to move some money around. He said Marcus should not worry about anything. But the weeks passed, and no money came. Marcus started calling Victor more frequently, sometimes multiple times a day. Sometimes Victor answered. Most of the time, he did not. The deadline to pay the first tuition installment came and went. Marcus missed it. He called Victor in a panic, begging him to send the money, promising to pay him back someday. Victor said he would wire the funds that night. He never did. The next morning, Marcus discovered that Victor had blocked his number. He tried messaging on Facebook, on Instagram, on every platform he could think of. Either Victor had blocked him everywhere, or he was simply ignoring every message. Diana found Marcus in his room crying. He showed her the blocked notifications, the unanswered messages, the silence from the man who was supposed to be his real father. She held him while he sobbed, and later she came to me with tears in her own eyes. "He needs you," she said. "Please." I shook my head. "He needs to learn this lesson. If I rescue him now, he will never understand what he threw away." It was the hardest thing I ever did. But I knew it was right. Marcus had to defer his enrollment for a semester. While his friends went off to state university, he got a job at a coffee shop making minimum wage and coming home smelling like espresso. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to work for something. 4 months passed. 4 months of silence between Marcus and me. 4 months of him working, and me waiting, hoping my mother was right about lessons that need to be learned the hard way. Then one evening, there was a knock on my bedroom door. I opened it to find Marcus standing there looking nothing like the arrogant teenager who had screamed at me in the kitchen. His eyes were red and swollen. His shoulders were slumped. He looked like a boy who had finally grown up. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside and let him in. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands, and for a long time, he did not say anything. I waited. I had learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is give someone space to find their words. "I found out why Victor stopped answering," Marcus finally said. "He has a new family now, a wife and 2 kids. They live in that beach house I told you about. The one I thought was so amazing." He laughed bitterly. "I guess I was just his old family, the one he wanted to forget." I did not say anything. There was nothing to say. Marcus looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "You were at every single basketball game," he said. "Every single one. Even the ones where I barely played. Even the ones that were 2 hours away. You were always there." I nodded. I was. Victor came to 1 game. 1. And he left at halftime because he had a business call. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I was so stupid," he said. "I thought because he had money, because he had nice things that meant he cared more. But he never stayed up with me when I was sick. He never taught me how to ride a bike. He never helped me with my homework, or drove me to practice, or fixed my car when it broke down. He met my eyes. You did all of that. You did everything. And I threw it in your face like it meant nothing." For a moment, I did not know how to respond. 12 years of love and sacrifice hung in the air between us, finally acknowledged after months of pain. Marcus stood up and faced me directly. "I know I do not deserve it," he said. "I know sorry is not enough. But I am asking anyway. Can you ever forgive me?" He paused, and then he added the word I had been waiting to hear. "Dad." I pulled him into a hug, and we both cried. We cried for the wasted months, for the harsh words, for the lessons that had to be learned the hard way. But we also cried with relief, because the nightmare was finally over. Diana found us like that, holding each other in the bedroom, tears and apologies mixing together. She joined the embrace, and for the first time in almost a year, we felt like a family again. Over the following weeks, Marcus and I rebuilt our relationship piece by piece. I agreed to help him with college, but with conditions. He would continue working part-time. He would contribute what he could. He would treat his education as a privilege, not a right. Marcus enrolled in community college for 2 years to save money. He kept his job at the coffee shop, working weekend shifts and early mornings before class. He studied hard-earned good grades and applied for every scholarship he could find. 2 years later, he transferred to State University with a partial academic scholarship. The day he got the acceptance letter, he came home and handed it to me first. "We did it, Dad," he said. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I framed that letter. It hangs in my garage now, right next to a photograph of a little boy learning to ride a bicycle. These days, Marcus and I have a new tradition. Every Sunday afternoon, we work on cars together in the garage. He is learning to do his own maintenance, and I am teaching him everything I know. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we just work in comfortable silence. But we are always together. Last month, Marcus brought his girlfriend home to meet the family. When he introduced me, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "This is my dad, Lionel. He is the man who raised me." I had to excuse myself for a minute after that. Some things still make me cry even after all these years. Looking back, I learned something important from this whole experience. Being a father is not about blood. It is about showing up every single day, even when it hurts. But it is also about knowing when to step back and let someone find their own way home. I also learned that love without boundaries is not really love. It is just letting people take advantage of you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. It hurts in the moment, but it builds the kind of character that lasts a lifetime. Marcus still does not have a relationship with Victor. He stopped trying to reach out years ago. Sometimes I wonder if Victor ever thinks about the son he abandoned twice. Probably not. Some people are just not capable of putting others before themselves. But that is okay. Marcus has all the family he needs right here. And I have the son I always wanted, even if it took us a while to find our way to each other. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever had to let someone learn a lesson the hard way? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I know others in this community will too. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel, so you do not miss the next story. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this community. Remember, family is not about blood. It is about who shows up. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next video.